I moved to Paisley. I moved to Paisley when I was 19. For the main reason that I was already working in a record shop in Paisley, the record market in the West End, and it came the time that that I was moving out of the house, and I thought, well, I'll move to Paisley. I suppose to a certain extent out of convenience, because it meant that I would be closer to the shop. It meant I could stay in my bed that little bit longer. But yeah, I moved there when I was 19 and spent 2 or 3 years in Paisley. It was a record market. It's a small, very small record shop in the West End of Paisley, and it's still there to this day. It isn't open currently, but it's still there, a little green shop in the West End. I think most people have passed it and recognise it at some point. But I actually started in there when I was 14 as a Saturday job while I was still at school. And when I left school, I then went on to work in the store and kind of run the store as well, right up until I was 21, I think, and then I moved out and started working for record companies. That was my, when I was very young, probably my main reason for coming to Paisley was that it had 3 fantastic record stores in Paisley. It had the record market, it had the record factory, which at that time actually was just kind of newly opened, and it had Stereo One. Over and above that, there were other places like Purdy's Music in the West End that sold records that wasn't open for that long, and we had John Menzies as well and Woolworths. So it was like a little hive of activity. It was, we had one record shop in Paisley, one record shop in Johnston. Years ago we had one called Rainbow, and then we had Stereo One. And that was generally what we'd do on a Saturday. We would, as a group of young guys, young friends, we'd all head to the local record shop, Stereo One in Johnston, then we'd head up to the train station, and then we'd jump on the train, and then we'd get off the train and go to Stereo One, which was the nearest station, and then work our way around the record shops. Sometimes we would even venture further out and go to Barhead, where there was a record shop in Barhead. I think it might have been called the Music Machine, and there was also one in Renfrew as well. So it was a little hive of activity. And at the same time as well, we also viewed Paisley, if we go back after and look at our record purchases and that kind of thing, and then we'd, quite a lot of the time we'd gravitate back out to jumping back on the train, getting off at Gilmour Street and going out, once we were a little bit older, going out to the pubs and clubs in Paisley, because there was a thriving scene, and the thriving scene was based around music as well. So there were certain pubs and clubs you could go to that played a different variety of music. We were into predominantly rock and heavy metal, so there was a pub called the Abercorn down near the Abbey, and it had a brilliant heavy metal jukebox, and that's where all the long-haired people would go, so we would gravitate towards there. But there were other pubs and clubs you could go to as well, and you found that, you found back in those days in the late 80s that Paisley was on a Saturday night was a throng of people moving around between the clubs and the pubs. Something that maybe we don't see so much of anymore. People tend to go out a little bit later and then go into a pub or a club or stay there. But the idea was you would go out and you'd do your little circuit of the different clubs, meet your friends, and get the last train back home to Johnston. Of course, me getting a flat at the age of 19 in Paisley meant that very few times would my mates actually go back in that last train to Johnston. They would always crash in my house in Paisley, so for a big party as such, in the big smoke. Well, we used to go. There was plenty at the time. There was Shuttle Street was a real hotbed of music and different types of music. You had, I think, one of the pubs we used to go to regularly was a pub called the Earl of Cranberry, I think. Don't quote me on that. I think it's Earl of Cranberry, and they would have a stage, and they could accommodate bands and a capacity of 150, 200, and there was Fury Murray's later on, and there was plenty of other bars around there, and then you had more of your wine bars around the corner. You had the wine bar around the corner, and cafes. Was a Cafe Borgia later on. The Bull Inn was always a favourite, and of course right across from the Bull Inn was a pub at the time called Minstrels, I believe, and we used to go in there quite often because it was especially if it was a bit later, it was quite close to the taxi rank for getting back to Johnston, but it had a good vibe about it as well. further out, the clubbing was pretty much, the clubs in Paisley did rather well at the time. There was a big club, now no longer there, called the Cotton Club, and it would accommodate several hundred people. And of course we had Toledo Junction, which is now Vienna's, I think, and so there was a big kind of clubbing circuit as well. Paisley was, for a good decade, or more, a real hotbed of activity, at the weekends in terms of culture and enjoyment. Oh yes, I was here. I didn't get a ticket. I didn't get a ticket for the final, but we did. My dad. That was the first time my dad took me out to the pub actually to celebrate, because I was just slightly underage. But it was such a momentous thing that he took me out for my first beer at the age of 17, and then we headed down to the town hall to see the team come back. And I think there was something like over 100,000 people in the town centre at the time, and it was fantastic. It was an amazing occasion. It really was.
An experience not be repeated.
Exactly. Well, I mean, they have won the League Cup since, but I don't believe, and I wasn't there at the time, so I can't comment on that. But certainly for me, it was, and for the town, it was a phenomenal night, and a few days after. Well, I think Paisley's got a great deal to offer. I think first of all, it's got its people of Paisley. It's got a large community. It's the largest town in Scotland, isn't it? There is something about the Paisley Buddy that is absolutely likeable to anybody. And also, when you look at Paisley, it is a real historic town. When you look at the likes of the Abbey, sometimes on a nice night, when it's well lit and it's not raining, and you take a stroll around, on an evening, and you see the Abbey and the Town Hall, and you look at the buildings that we have, the Thomas Coates Memorial Church, and I know they're doing up the Russell Institute building. When you look around and you look at the older architecture and the way that the town centre's laid out, it's a beautiful town. It's been hit in the last 20 odd years by lots of retailers leaving the town as such, and we're left with a rather empty high street, which I think, because a lot of the time that's at eye level and people walk around, they think there's nothing much happening in Paisley, but we have this structure, we have these beautiful buildings, and we have a great infrastructure here, which we tend, I think, to miss upon. That I think you hear a lot of people saying, you're only a few minutes from Glasgow, you can just jump on a train and get to Glasgow. But we have great transport links. Instead of people leaving Paisley to go to Glasgow or go elsewhere, whether it's shopping, whether it's entertainment, whether it's dining, etc. We should be looking at people coming from Glasgow, coming back into Paisley and saying, do you know what, we're going into Paisley. And that's a difficult ask. Because Glasgow has so much to offer, but there is no reason with what we have here that we can't cultivate that Germany, to grow it and have a thriving, not just a music scene, but have a thriving scene for the public, for Paisley and wider alike. My new venture is a record store called Feel the Groove, which has opened on the site of the old Apollo Music, formerly the Record Factory, on Cossyside Street in Paisley. So it's a traditional record and CD store. Well, it was never really my intention, but initially when I started out in the music industry, I started out in retail, working in a small record shop called the Record Market in the West End of Paisley, which is still there to this day, but isn't no longer open at the moment. And I started out in Paisley and selling records, and then I moved on to working with various different record companies, but one of the things I always did do was keep in touch with Mike Dillon, who's the owner of the Record Factory and Apollo Music. So I used to, any time that I had free time, we'd go out for lunches. I'd pop in when I was living in London. I would come up and chat to him, etc. So we had this kind of friendship, and I knew that Mike was retiring, and close to his retirement a few weeks ago. he said, why don't you take over the shop? Why don't, because Paisley still needs a record shop in his eyes. And I thought, no, that's maybe not the job for me. It's quite a big task, quite a big take on. And then I started thinking, well, maybe this could work. And I think Mike's possibly right. It's a big town. It's got a record shop that has got great will, great customers. And I started seeing things like the comments that were posted on Facebook, and how everyone seemed so upset about losing the shop. And and having a few chats with Mike, I thought, maybe I could make this work. Maybe I could do something and bring, keep the record shop, bring a record shop back to Paisley, and in a climate where you read about record shops closing all the time, maybe I could be the one that bucks the trend and says record shop opens. So that was the original thinking. Give the town its record shop back. I started working on a business plan and looking at, how could I make this work? How could this record shop be different? Because I think these days a record shop has to offer more than just selling CDs or vinyls. It has to be something a little bit more in order to be successful as a business entity. Well, the whole point of taking on the shop, when I stood back and I looked at what the shop was about, to me it just screamed community. I had a community of people that came in, and what I believed the shop should offer is be a community-based shop. It should be a place where you come in and you're welcomed in, and you spend some time, you browse. And I've opened up the shop a fair amount, and we've put a little kind of bar in, which intends to be a coffee bar, and it's a performance area as well. And I see that as being a social area for the shop. I see that as not being part of what we are, but that's where people can come in and they can use that space to sit up, read magazines, listen to music, listen to records, etc. And that's the space for them. And I see the shop as being having a bigger role with the music community of Paisley. We have quite a large back shop area which comprises of offices, so we're looking in the future to refurb these and then use them for things like label services, maybe social enterprises. And the idea is to give people in the town and in the wider local community the chance to come in and maybe work in an aspect or learn part of an aspect of the music industry, whether that's working in the live industry, which I'm involved in, whether it's working in the promotions and marketing, which I'm involved in, or whether it's with education, etc. So that was the initial idea. And also we've got all these other businesses around Paisley. We've got great live venues like the Bungalow Barn, we've got the Cave, and we've got the Loud and Proud Rock School, and we have Brick Lane Studios. We've got lots of music teachers. We've got a scene, we've got a mod scene, etc. developing within the town, and I can see a fresh new impetus of all of these things happening. And I see the shop as being, central to that, a place where people come and they meet and they buy tickets for other venues and they get more information about what's happening, and people from the Loud and Proud Rock School can play live in the store. I see it as being part of pulling together the Paisley music community and trying to build that, because it's a good community. That was when we were settling on a name. One of the things early on is we thought that with the social aspect of the shop, we'd maybe call it social music. But we decided to go with Feel the Groove, and the idea is, and a lot of people say don't touch the vinyl, but it's touch the vinyl, feel the groove. If we've got coffee, taste the coffee, feel the groove. Wear the merch, feel the groove. It's about getting that feeling back that you don't have with something that's digital. One of the first things that we did was make sure that all the vinyl is out on the racks, and that it's live, so you can take out a second-hand album, you can have a look at it, and you get to see the liner notes, and you get to get a more feel for something. And that's what the shop is based on. It's based on a feeling that it's bringing music back and bringing a connection. So that's the kind of marketing side, you could say, of what the record shop does. But in a larger capacity, we've had people pass the shop and see the PA in the window and say, I'm a singer-guitarist, can I play in the shop? And we're like, yeah, send us some links and we'll arrange for you to do that. We see the shop as being a central point for young people who maybe haven't developed enough or aren't even old enough to play in a pub or a club, but can come and play in the shop. They can come and play in the shop, they can bring their friends, and they can get maybe their first gig in a public space. We can also offer consultancy and point them in the right direction and say, this is what maybe you should be doing, and maybe you should be going to speak to Loud and Proud, or if you're going to use going to do recording, maybe go to Bricknade, and we can point them in the right direction. And later on, then the idea is to offer some kind of training programs as well, so that there is something that can we can not manage them, but we can help them in the aspect of trying to realise their early dreams in their career and point them in the right direction. And that's the whole aspect of the shop. It is to get in touch with music, to feel the music.
Feel the groove.
Exactly.